Do it. I'll do it with you.
No one's watching it.
I don't even deserve one.
Ready? Less than 1 minute. How much time we got? 30
Oh,
seconds?
we're live now, but that's
we are live
okay.
now.
We're just
Okay.
live before. No one has tuned in yet that I can see.
Good.
Hey everyone, if you're just tuning in now, this is often, I think, well, I don't know how much of a tradition is it in bar culture to have a shot before your shift?
It's pretty,
It's pretty common,
traditional.
right?
That's very common.
Yeah.
I would say so.
So, if you guys feel like you need a little warmer upper, like Brandon does, then grab your Fortaleza or your Mezcal, your El Silencio.
It's a liquid amuse-bouche, if you will.
A liquid amuse-bouche, thank you. Welcome to the cocktail journey. It is time to get started on this week's live stream, which is the Paloma. So thank you for joining us. As we have a few more people tuning in, would you just let us know who you are and where you're coming in from tonight? We are here in beautiful San Diego, which is not sunny today. It's one of our very rare rainy days. There are a few of you who are probably going, that's nothing compared to the snow where we are. So I hope that this wonderful, delightful, citrusy cocktail from the sunny area of Mexico will brighten your days today as it does for ours. So let us know where you're coming from. We'd love to say hi. We love to know who we're chatting with. And just drop that in the comments. Let us know any early questions you have about the Paloma. And we're going to get started making a cocktail now. I'd like to introduce ta-ta, this guy over here, who I haven't introduced yet, Brandon Curry. He was with us for our Negroni live stream, and we're so happy to have him back.
It's very good to be back.
Brandon is the guy that I think of when I think tequila in San Diego, because he's so passionate about it, and mezcal, because that's what he does for a living as well. And we'll be doing, I think, a second version of the Paloma with mezcal later on. So if you've got that smoky bottle handy, look forward to that. But I also, I think I first met Brandon, I don't even remember when.
God, it was probably...
I think it was Lion's Share.
Yeah, that would have been, 6 or 7 years ago?
It was a while ago. And one of the things that I secretly love about him is that we both share a literary history. So I don't remember, was that your undergrad?
It was undergrad, and I finished my first year as a PhD student and decided to drop out because I fell in love with this industry here. So
he became a sommelier instead of a PhD literature student.
Yeah.
Graduate.
This crazy world sucked me in. So.
But he's a great storyteller, and we always enjoy spending time with him. So we're going to hear about the Paloma today. Now, let's see. Hi, Terrence. Terrence is here from Meredith, New Hampshire.
Welcome,
Where's
Terrence.
Everyone else? Oh, Diane's tuning in from Ohio. Hi, Diane. Great to see you again.
Hello.
Tom's from Maryland. Enjoying a record-breaking high temperature day. Curious to know what that is.
I'm sure 30.
And John's in Los Angeles. So thanks for coming.
Welcome.
Welcome to the Paloma. We are going to start out with the basic and essential recipe for the Paloma, which we sent to any of you who are on our email list. Got that I think last week. But that's also at thecocktailjourney.com/the-paloma. And we're going to drop that basic recipe in the chat here momentarily. And so for the first 15-20 minutes, we're going to talk about how to make the perfect version of the most classic and simple. We might be breaking that standard a little bit.
We're gonna diverge. So the Paloma was actually first invented down in Mexico, and it was just tequila and squirt, and that's it. So really sweet, really kind of viscous with a little bit of carbonation. But what we're doing today, and the recipe we're about to drop in the chat, is going to be based on using fresh citrus, a little bit of simple syrup, and in this case Topo Chico. So it's very bright, like highly carbonated soda water. I think that really makes the best version of one of my favorite summertime cocktails. So for those of you tuning in from the East Coast or from the Midwest where it's a little bit chilly, I think of a Paloma as like a little bit of liquid sunshine. It really is perfect for like afternoon or early evening. Just really bright, refreshing, perfectly balanced. we can get into the nuances of why these flavors work together in a little bit. But yeah, like we're adapting that like classic recipe that was just used with what was available, right? Like squirt grapefruit soda.
And that
And we're
started
kind of-
when it was like the 1950s in Mexico when,
Yeah,
right?
a while
When
ago.
grapefruit soda was like came on the scene and someone was like, oh, look at this. Squirt and tequila go really well together. This is amazing.
Yeah, who would have thought?
and it took off from there. And so if you don't have fresh grapefruit juice, totally fine to make this with a grapefruit soda. And maybe you can give a few tips on that. How does the recipe change if you're making this with soda according to the classic versus...
Well, you should like
The
a
way that we're
Paloma
gonna
should
make it.
always be a little bit carbonated. So, I mean, you don't have to be honest. It's still delicious with just the lime and the grapefruit. But so like squirt is grapefruit, lime, and a lot of sugar, a little bit of carbonation, right? So what we're doing in this case is we're using simple syrup, fresh grapefruit, fresh lime, and then Topo Chico. So we're essentially making our own grapefruit soda just with fresh ingredients instead of a highly processed Coke product. Nothing against Coke.
And there's been a few rounds of the grapefruit. There was, what was there, Fanta? No, that's orange soda. What was it?
I mean, there's so many different kinds of grapefruit soda.
I'm looking at Sean. I'm trying to jog my memory.
I'm like, if I don't have
Fresca.
fresh juice at home,
Fresca.
Fresco's good.
I think that was
great.
my first Paloma was with Fresca
Wow,
years ago.
I bet that was great.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
So Tom asked a good starting question. If you have a 2-to-1 simple, do you need to adjust the ratio?
Yes.
So yes, the recipe that I posted in the chat just calls for regular simple syrup, but if you have 2-to-1, how much would you use instead of a 3/4 of an
I
ounce?
have not really messed around with a 2-to-1 in a Paloma, but I would say at the very maximum half.
Probably
I would
half.
say even less. Maybe like 3/8, because I mean, it's really about balancing out the acidity of these two citrus juices with the sweetness. So I would say start off at 3/8, and then maybe if it's a little bit dry, then you can add that extra bit to make it a full half ounce. But I would err on the side of less sugar before adding more.
John, did you and Tom already make your Palomas? Because he says that they only had rich simple and they decided not to adjust the ratio, and it's pretty delicious.
Okay.
We better get started
Hey.
because they're ahead of us already.
Let's do it. All right.
So Brandon's gonna make this beautiful
Yeah.
cocktail, another shaken cocktail. You guys are already way ahead of us.
I love it.
You will notice that Brandon and Sean did some pre-processing of the citrus.
Yes.
And so we already have our grapefruit and the lime pre-squeezed. We had a conversation with Stefan about that when we did the sidecar, about how citrus begins to oxidize
right away.
right away.
Yep.
And in some cases it's really good. Like in the case of lime, you actually want it to oxidize for a little bit before you use it because it helps to cut some of, I don't know, the acidity or the punchiness. I don't remember the word that he used.
Well, so if you guys really want to
Such
get
a nerd.
nerdy, so the average acidity of lime juice is 6% acidity, and that's the same as lemons, although lime juice contains both malic and citric acid.
Mm-hmm.
So, whereas lemons are just citric acid. Grapefruit on average is about 2.8% acidity. So just the combination of the two together really gives it like a lot of brightness, but you're really looking for trying to balance the sugar and the acid together. So for the base spirit on the Paloma today, we're going to use one of my favorite blancos of all time, Fortaleza. Tahona, very, very classically produced. Like I said, it's one of my favorites of all time.
When we were, and that's one of the ones we recommend in our 15-bottle bar guide.
Yeah.
I think Stefan says it's the stick by which they measure all Blanco tequilas whenever
Pretty
they're
much.
tasting a new one.
Pretty much.
So pretty great
Yeah.
thing to have in your bar. All right, we're getting some. Ice is in the freezer.
Where else would it be, right?
Where else would it be? We tried to have like a little ice caddy over here, but it's just so much better to use cold ice straight out of the freezer.
Extremely cold ice.
Extremely cold ice. Now I know at least one of you, and maybe one of you on this call, has like an ice freezer in their bar. Who has an ice freezer in their bar? I want to know. Right? Who's got the freezer? Someone's got the ice freezer, or they've got like the row of freezers under their bar that I'm really jealous of.
So one quick note, when you are shaking, when you're adding any lengthener to a cocktail, you want to shake for less time than you normally would, right?
What do you mean by lengthener?
A lengthener would be the Topo Chico in this case,
Oh.
right? So let's say if you were serving a shaken cocktail up, you want to shake it for a couple more seconds than if you were going to serve it on the rocks, and even less time if you're going to serve it with soda water or any kind of any other additive that does not contain alcohol to it.
So you want to shake it more
If it's up,
if it's up,
less.
but you want to shake it less if it's on the rocks. And so since we're going on the rocks with this,
Well, it's even less because the limbs
Yeah.
are in on the
even
rocks.
less. Okay.
So normally I would shake with both hands, but I fucked up my shoulder a couple weeks ago, and I'm just going to shake it with one this time. But I know.
Why do you want to shake it for less time when you're adding soda water?
Because, I mean, it's kind of like what Stefan was saying to you guys a couple weeks ago about the importance of dilution, right? You don't want to over dilute any of your cocktails.
So you don't want to over dilute the alcohol that's in here and the citrus with the ice because you're going to be adding the water.
Yes, exactly.
There you go. And we were chatting about this before we went live, is that you are adding the soda water to the shaker as opposed to, because you could also strain what was in the shaker into the glass and then top with soda water.
You could.
But this is a good
For
tip.
visual purposes, I prefer to add, and just for mixing purposes in general, right? I prefer to add the soda water to the tin before I strain it in, just because it creates a more uniform color. If you were to add the soda on top, you'd have a layer of,
You have a layer of soda water.
It'd be like a deeper texture on the bottom, which is fine. Like, there's really no wrong way to do it, but as far as consistency, like, that's one of my biggest things. I love, like, just having a consistent color and flavor and whatnot. So
I thought that was a great tip because it sort of helps to pre-mix the whole cocktail, including now the soda water is totally integrated into this glass, into this cocktail, and you don't have to. I don't know. Sometimes I do that. I'll stick a straw in a cocktail that's been topped with something, and I'll be like, "This isn't fully mixed," and I'll want to swizzle it a little or something. But you've taken care of that for your guest without breaking up the bubbles in the soda water, because you don't want to shake your soda water either.
Yeah, that's one of the things you do not want to do.
So if you weren't paying attention, if you were like frantically squeezing your grapefruit juice while Brandon was making this, what you want to do is add all the ingredients to the shaker except for your soda water. Shake it, but not for very long, because you're going to be adding something that's going to help dilute your cocktail afterwards. And then you're going to add your soda water after you've shaken it. And what Brandon just demonstrated was adding it to the shaker before pouring it in the glass so that it helps with the combination. And it's beautiful. It's just a lovely color.
It's one of my favorite cocktails, honestly. I'm more of a vinegar guy myself, but when it comes to refreshing cocktails, the Paloma is probably my favorite. I love fresh grapefruit, and it's just honestly like the grapefruit doesn't overpower the tequila. Like every ingredient really does add to each other, and it's a beautiful harmony of flavor and then like acidic balance too, right? So perfect summertime cocktail.
Who's gonna drink it?
Volunteers tribute.
I think that I love having folks on this live stream and then making them drink the cocktails that they make, because they're always making these cocktails for other people. And it's just, you need to be able to enjoy the fruits of your labor.
It's kind of nice.
No salt.
Delicious.
No salt today?
I was looking over my shoulder to see if you had it out. But
Oh, okay. So,
okay. Oh, never mind. So another thing that I'll do sometimes is I'll just add a little pinch of like Maldon or like large flake sea salt. Like nothing, like I wouldn't use like Morton's or anything that's like super fine grained, because that's gonna overpower it. But like what you would normally use as a finishing salt, just a little sprinkle on top, just to kind of make everything pop a little bit more. Definitely just very, very small pinch.
Are you looking for a kosher salt?
Yeah.
It's right on the oven.
Oh.
So, the refrigerator stare that
steak
happens
bag.
sometimes. Where's the salt? Where's this? We have literally like 6 different kinds of salt in there. Wonderful. So,
Yeah.
a couple quick questions about sort of this cocktail that I've seen come through.
Okay.
One, Jamie said, do you start with a simple syrup at room temperature? Because when he takes it out of the fridge, it has this like thicker, more viscous quality to it when it's cold. And he's wondering about how that incorporates with such a short shaking cycle.
So if it's cold, it just means slightly less dilution, which is what you want, right? Because you're adding the soda water as a lengthener to this cocktail. So to me, I would recommend using a 1-to-1 instead of a 2-to-1 on this one. So keep it simple, keep it in the fridge, and then go from there.
So this would be the simplest version of simple syrup. Your 1-to-1 ratio is great for this. Okay, good to know.
Yep.
But we actually only had 2-to-1 simple syrup on hand, so
okay, it's still really good.
Did you do the full? You did the full one.
I didn't know it was 2-to-1. It's still really good.
But I feel like even with such a short shaking cycle, it still incorporates that pretty well.
Yeah.
I guess not hanging out there like an egg white that kind of wants to stick together, right? It's fully emulsified.
Yeah. I wouldn't worry about whether or not it's a room temperature in the fridge. Just
Okay.
Just like your biggest concern would be dilution for sure.
Great. So, what are some ways that we can go from here with the Paloma? I had a couple of interesting suggestions in the chat. One was, I think, from Diane about using agave nectar in place of simple syrup.
Yep, absolutely.
How would your specs or your recipe change if you're using agave?
Exact same
as the
ratio
1-to-1.
nectar. Yep. Yep.
Because it's about the same sweetness as a simple.
Yep. It's a more complex sugar. So agave nectar, it's fructan. So the way that your body digests it is a little bit different. But as far as the actual sweetness goes, like the actual Brix level, there's really not much of a difference between agave nectar and what would be like a 1-to-1 simple syrup. So you can swap either one out for sure.
Great. John used agave syrup as well.
Yeah, it's delicious.
And agave syrup, agave nectar, same thing.
Different. Not all agave nectars are created equal, but
from a brand perspective.
I don't even remember the name of the brand that I use at home, but I mean, we live in San Diego, so we have access to some really solid purveyors down here. But I always get my agave nectar from Specialty Produce, and I can't remember what the brand is, to be honest. I really don't know.
It's probably the one with the picture of the agave on it, right?
From what I do here, the Kirkland Signature is actually pretty solid. Costco never really skimps when it comes to quality, so if you guys do have access to a Costco, the Kirkland Signature agave nectar, I would say, is probably up there. I've used Trader Joe's before in the past too, and it's fine. But
great.
There's definitely like the amount the amount that the agave is actually cooked before they make it into a nectar matters a lot, because then you get like more of that perceived molasses flavor versus like the lighter, cleaner. So you can just tell by the color of what that agave syrup looks like. But there's some that have like a deeper, richer kind of flavor and texture to it. So
okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about ratios.
Yeah.
What if you don't have, like, what if you've got different sizes of glassware? When you hear this word topped with soda water?
Yeah.
What does that mean? How much soda water do you use? You obviously just poured it straight into the shaker.
Yeah, I mean, it's
but
a long time of bartending. But
like, how much would you say that you use by volume, and would you recommend for this recipe?
I would do like probably perceived like a quarter, a fifth, depending on like how vibrant you want that cocktail.
So 1/5 of your cocktail should
1/5 of the total volume, right? So let's say if it's 6 ounces, then I would add like 1.5 ounces of soda water. But if you're making a round of cocktails at home, then you're going to have obviously that more volume in your shaker, and in that case, I would probably just shake the cocktail and then top every cocktail off with soda water and let your guests just stir it and enjoy it from there. Like I said, for me, like I do a lot of work with photography, so to me the visual aspect is really important. But if you're hosting a party, fuck it, just honestly make the cocktail and top it off with soda water. Good.
As in, like, you start with a little bit of soda water, because then the ice will continue to dilute, as opposed to going too far with your addition of soda water.
Well, so I would say like shake the cocktail
Mm-hmm.
and strain it equally into every glass without adding ice. Then add ice, then top with soda water. So the visual aspect, right? You're gonna have that clear top layer, but again, your guest can just kind of stir it in and do that whole thing. But if you want to create an equal portion cocktail for your guests, add ice after you pour the cocktail, so you can get a visual line and make sure that everything's equal, and then you can add your ice and then add the soda water after that. That would be my recommendation.
Hashtag Paloma party.
It's never a bad time.
I've got having a birthday party on Sunday.
There you go.
What happens if you don't add soda water? You just get like a really good,
essentially
dense,
like a grapefruit margarita.
Sour, exactly, a grapefruit margarita.
That'd be pretty much, yeah.
So,
like I said, like the difference in the acidity really matters, right? So you want to use twice as much grapefruit as you do lime, and then when you blend the two together, they really do shine. And so you have a lot more citrus by volume than you would simple syrup. So it does equal out in a way where like a traditional sour would be, let's say, like 3/4 lime, 3/4 simple, and then 2 ounces of spirit, right? In this case, because grapefruit has less acidity, you're using a full 1.5 ounces of citrus, and then only 3/4 ounce of your sugar, right? So it's really all about finding that balance of acidity and sugar. Yeah. So
this is fun.
Yeah.
We had, okay, what else? One of you said up here, oh, John, yeah, and Carl gives you props for that. He used a couple of drops of a 20% saline solution.
Okay, that works too.
Nice.
Yep. Saline or Maldon, like I said, like it needs to be a finishing salt and not anything like kosher or like
Morton's.
Yeah. Don't use Morton's.
Don't use the girl with the umbrella.
Yeah. Get some fancy stuff. Do that.
Carl, did we answer your question about soda water versus without affects the cocktail? It's basically a delicious grapefruit margarita.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I've had it many times. I'm not a Topo Chico.
Oh well.
All right, well, it's not the end of the world.
Would love to hear how you all are planning on iterating on this classic version for your next one. And also, how many of you have actually like got some grapefruit soda? Either you're used to making Palomas with grapefruit soda, and so you're like, I'll try the fresh juice, but like I got my method down already. Or I'm curious to know how many of you went out and found like, you're like, I'm gonna go find grapefruit soda, which is what we did because we don't often have this in our bar, but we got some Fever Tree to sort of like explore and see what is it like with fresh versus not. So I'm curious to hear if any of you are sourcing and using soda. Any of you doing the classic version, like the squirt cocktail?
Squirt's great. If I do use this guy, I always do 1/2 ounce of lime as well in this. So just 2 ounces of either tequila or mezcal, 1/2 ounce of lime, top this guy off, grapefruit twist, you're good to go. Super easy.
Good to know.
So if you don't have access to fresh juice, honestly, it's super refreshing. And Fever Tree makes a lot of really quality products, but their grapefruit soda, to me, is exceptional.
Very good.
So, yeah.
We tend to not be too snobby around here. So, like, literally, you guys, if you've got the squirt or the Fresca in your fridge, I'm always going to say,
yeah,
it's better than just, if you want to make a cocktail, use what you have around. You don't have any fresh grapefruit you didn't make to the store? That's fine. Make yourself a Paloma. Don't be a snob. But I would be really curious to know if any of you are playing around with the soda tonight, with the prepared soda, and what you think of it, as well as how it compares to a fresh version if you had that tonight as well.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to ask Brandon, what do you want to do to mix up your Paloma tonight?
Well, let me tell you what. Let's set this guy aside.
He's got the better version.
So to me, mezcal makes... I'm not going to say better. I'm going to refrain from using that word. But I absolutely love a mezcal Paloma because I think the mezcal gives it a much deeper, complex, like earthier flavor that pairs really, really well with grapefruit especially. And so I love tequila Paloma, but mezcal is actually my favorite.
It's
Exact
nothing
same.
to do with him being like, you know.
No, it has nothing to do with the fact that I work for this company at all. I promise.
Brandon, and I can attest to the fact that Brandon was in love with El Silencio before they came knocking on his door,
That is true.
which is probably one of the reasons they came knocking on his door. El Silencio is also a fantastic mezcal to have like as a staple in your bar. Regardless of the fact that you cannot ever tell how much is left in the bottle. I think it adds to the mystery. It's kind of a guilt.
That's exactly the point.
It's kind of a guilt-free bottle because you're like, I don't know how much is left.
I can't even tell you.
Nobody can tell me.
I can't even tell you how many bar managers have texted me on like the first of the month when they're doing inventory. Like, hey, how much is in this? Yeah, what, 0.4? 0.5? Can't really tell. I don't know.
You have to get out your scale.
You just gotta buy another bottle.
Yeah, exactly.
Buy another bottle.
Who cares? Drink it.
So it's also the mezcal that one of the mezcals we recommend for the 15-bottle bar because it's just a really nice, very easily made, and really designed for cocktail making, right?
Yeah, actually, so we started out as a brand with a much higher end expression. So we're using 2 wild agaves and espadín, and we really kind of wanted that first creation to be like more of an introduction into the world of mezcal if someone was a tequila drinker. But the question we kept on getting asked from bartenders was, when are you guys going to come out with something that we can actually use in our cocktail program? Our ensemble is like 3 times more expensive than the espadín. But so after a year of research, we came out with this guy. So this is our answer to that question, and it's smoky. It's still incredibly smooth on the finish, but it really just has like everything that at least I'm looking for, and everything from a Paloma to a Bloody Mary to even a martini. There's a spot downtown here in San Diego that makes a martini with ancho verde and Bianco vermouth that is just it's absolutely amazing. So
Sean's doing a happy dance behind the camera.
Yeah.
Tom had a question. You said something about your soda being extra carbonated. Can you talk about the carbonation levels of different soda and seltzer waters?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert by any means, but I do know that Topo Chico retains its carbonation for longer, but it also has a perceived like crisp and brightness to it that,
Snappy.
let's say, like Perrier is going to be a lot more soft. Pellegrino is probably in the middle. But as far as like you really want that like bright kind of snap to your soda water, and so for that reason I prefer Topo Chico.
I think the first time I had a Topo Chico was like, whoa.
Yeah, I know.
It's
like really kind of
it's
hits
like
your
double
palate,
time
like,
in
right
your
away.
mouth.
Yeah. So for that reason I like Topo, because when you think about adding a lengthener, right, you want it to matter, you want it to pop, you want it to like, and so the less you can use of any lengthener, the better off you're going to be to enjoy the balance of everything in that cocktail. So to me, you have to use a little bit less of Topo, but I mean, even like when I'm going out and visiting bars and restaurants, my go-to is just El Silencio Neat and a Topo Chico on the side. That's just like, it's a palate cleanser. It does everything you need.
We love soda water at this house. Yeah. Topo Chico's real nice. We also have the benefit of having quite a few like Mexican markets in San Diego that sell them by the case instead of like the little 6-pack.
Yeah, that definitely helps.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
All right, James is using Terramana, and the second round uses Cazadores tequila.
Okay. Yeah, both are great.
Lovely. John made the comment, you're also kind of at the mercy of your citrus. Do you have any tips on selecting grapefruit? Like, you don't want something that's wrinkled and shriveled and it looks like it's been sitting on the shelf for a couple
it's really
of
eyeballing.
weeks.
I think the trick I use for lime is like the smoother the skin on the lime, the more juice it's going to contain. So if you have like limes that have like a lot of little bumps on it, rule of thumb is like the smoother the skin on that lime, the thinner the skin is going to be, and the more juice that lime is going to contain. For grapefruits, it's kind of a crapshoot, to be honest. I'm Yeah.
I think it's.
I don't really have any.
I think the rule applies the same way.
I
Okay,
think so.
yeah.
Yeah. Here we go. We all miss that sound, and we just don't
I
get it.
know.
We don't get it that much on this
I
live
know.
stream because it's a short shake.
I miss it so much.
John Schmid says squirt is good.
Yeah, I mean, Squirt was the original. Like, right? Squirt's
It was.
the classic. So there's nothing wrong with Squirt. I would, John, if I were you, I would try to make 2 cocktails back to back, and do one with just either tequila or mezcal and Squirt, and then do one with like just a half ounce of lime, and see what you think in terms of what you think the overall flavor profile would be.
And Jamie, I'm curious to hear you expand a little bit. You said the fresh version that you made seems leaner than the one with grapefruit soda. You said they're both great. What do you mean by leaner? Was it like less sweet or
Okay, sorry. What was the question?
leaner? He said the fresh version seems leaner than with grapefruit soda.
Well,
So I
probably
want you
just
to
because
define
there's
leaner
more
for me.
sugar. Because there's more sugar in Squirt or like any kind of soda, it's going to be more viscous just because there's more sugar in it. So, yeah, the perception on your palate is it's gonna seem a little bit leaner because there's just less sugar in it. But I would say there's more flavor in it too. So I mean,
and if you wanted to create more viscosity in a fresh version,
then
you
you can just
could
use your 2 to 1.
adjust the ratio, use your 2 to 1. If you don't want to increase the sweetness, you could add less soda water so that you have less dilution, right?
Yeah, you do that too.
So this is the other fun thing that we like to do. It's like, how do you make your best version of the Paloma? And it's about sort of playing with those levers and figuring out what do I adjust here versus there to find out what you like a little bit better.
And honestly, it really does. It's all about your palate. Like, we're giving you the tools of of how to of all the flavors that you need to incorporate. But if you like it a little bit sweeter, go for it. If you prefer it with Squirt, go for it. If you prefer it however you want to do it, it's an amazing cocktail. And I've had so many different iterations of a Paloma. My favorite is with the fresh juice, but honestly, there's no wrong way to do it. So don't beat yourself up over the fact that if you're like, oh, I only have Squirt, it's still a really good cocktail.
Good. I'll use my the camping example. If I want to have Palomas while camping,
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring this
Yeah.
because there we go.
Salt Bay.
Sometimes you have to weigh the balance. Okay, John said leaner was less sweet is what he meant. Yeah,
Yep.
and the carbonation was more, which gives it a fuller feeling. Yeah, that's interesting. So playing and adjusting with carbonation, with sweetness, and I think probably what type of soda also makes a difference sometimes.
Yeah.
I think Fever Tree uses natural cane sugar, which is what we like to have.
It's just a little bit less than what Squirt would be. But like I said, I mean, Q, the brand, makes another really nice grapefruit soda. They use a little bit more citric acid than Fever Tree does, so you may need to use just a little bit less lime. But I mean, it's really about experimentation. Like whatever brand of grapefruit soda you find, you can kind of just figure it out as you go along. Like you may need a little bit of lime, you may need a little bit of even sugar, depending on So, but yeah, it's really up to your palate and what you like. So.
Tom says round 2 for him was Casamigos mezcal with some honey syrup.
Okay.
How's the honey syrup?
Yeah, I was gonna ask how's the honey syrup with that?
I don't do honey a lot in cocktails. I think that when we were very, very, very early on in our cocktail journey, our friend Patrick introduced us to the bee's knees. It was the first time that I had honey, like a honey syrup in a cocktail, and I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's
very forward.
And it's tricky too because I mean every honey itself varies in flavor depending on where you get it from, right? Depending on where it's sourced from. So,
what kind of honey did you use?
Yeah, honey's kind of tricky.
Clover honey, rosemary honey, wildflower honey, raw honey, local honey.
I don't know what
Costco honey.
What New Zealand the Manuka honey?
Manuka honey? I can't do that. It's too medicinal. So, yeah, curious to know about the honey. Jamie says Trader Joe's sometimes has ruby red grapefruit juice, which makes the juice part easier.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit because I remember, I think we were at, the first time I had a conversation about grapefruit juice and the benefits of fresh squeezed was at Cowboy Star, actually. Do you remember that, Sean? And they had, I think he had made like, it was this beautiful, like fresh grapefruit juice. And we were just talking about how much more beautiful and sweet it was when it was fresh. Mm. And the longer that it sits, the more bitterness, like the more bitter it becomes, right?
And that's a result of just the oxidation process. But what happens with grapefruit juice that you were going to get at, at Trader Joe's or Vaughn's or wherever, they pasteurize it, right? So they stop the oxidation process. But
so that would be better to keep. It would be better to keep like a pasteurized version of grapefruit juice in your fridge than squeezing your own and then keeping it for a couple of days.
I would say if you let's say if you're planning a cocktail party like 3 or 4 days out, and you only have time to go to the store and get grapefruit juice, go to Trader Joe's, get that, whatever. But if you do have the opportunity to use fresh grapefruit, I think it just pops a little bit more. But honestly, the difference in flavor isn't really that significant. I'm not gonna lie. So
there you go. So there's your fresh grapefruit juice hack. Is buy the bottled stuff. The bottled fresh juice. Because again, also like when it comes to squeezing, like you cannot squeeze a grapefruit in this. It doesn't work.
You can try.
Believe me, I've tried.
And so you also need to have different kinds of juicing tools, like what is the official word for this one?
A juicer.
The juicer. The tabletop ones, ideally, that catches the juice, or the electric one. Have an electric one. It's called a juicer, right?
Yeah,
but no, there's. If Dave Stolte were watching, he would correct you and tell you the specific names of. There's a citrus reamer.
Yeah. Citrus slave.
There's
I guess reamer. I guess.
This is what technically this is called an elbow juicer because it looks like an elbow, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. See, I'm not out in left field over here.
Yeah, I should have brought my old school wooden one.
So yeah. So there you go. That's your hack. Get your Trader Joe's.
Yeah, if you're in
fresh
a pinch,
grapefruit juice.
If you're in a pinch, get it. I still prefer fresh squeezed, but like I said, if you're in a pinch.
Would you ever? This is from John. Would you ever goose it with grapefruit bitters?
You know what? Actually, that's a really good question. I have made Palomas before. I've done it with a Regal shake. So I would throw a grapefruit pith in there. And shake it with the grapefruit pith, right? So you're going to extract a little bit more of that like bright kind of bitterness out of it.
Pith being not the peel.
Pith being what you would normally garnish it with, right?
So the peel with some of the white part of the pith on it.
I mean, you want to keep the pith to a minimum, right?
Okay.
So
because pith references the white part.
You're right.
I just have to, we got to get this clear.
Right. Okay.
So the pith is the white part of like underneath the surface of the peel.
Yeah. You're right.
So you would take just a basic garnish and throw it in the shaker.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're going to extract the oils from the skin of the grapefruit. The peel,
I promise we're not competing here.
The peel of the grapefruit, if you will. But yeah, so like the shaking the ice against the tin is going to extract some of the oils from the grapefruit skin. So you're going to get a little bit more of that grapefruit. You could use grapefruit bitters as well. But I mean, if you're already using grapefruit, I think it's actually pretty great to just do a Regal shake if you want a little bit more of that grapefruit flavor.
Is a Regal shake like a official type of shake where you put any citrus peel in?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So it doesn't apply specifically to grapefruit.
No,
you could Regal shake.
It could be
any sour
orange, lemon,
Okay,
could be whatever.
Perfect. Wonderful.
But yeah, if you just want a little bit more of that, like the bitter oil, right? So like what you're essentially doing in the process of doing a Regal shake is the agitation of the ice against the tin is going to extract some of the oils from the skin itself, right? So it's going to give it like a bitter, maybe a little bit more viscosity, but it's really about like that added kind of punch and that like that citrusy brightness and bitterness.
You got to make sure that on the Paloma, you just really dial into each one of those shakes because you don't have very many of them.
It's true.
So would you want to put the peel at the bottom of the shaker so that like the up and down motion would like hit it?
It doesn't matter.
Okay, I'm getting too nerdy here. Rebecca asked a good question about pulp. And I overheard him in kind of a very snobby tone saying, "Do you have a fine strainer? Because I need to strain this juice before I put it in here."
But it was the lime, right? Not the
It was the lime. Talk about that.
Well, we did strain the grapefruit too.
You did strain the grapefruit.
Yeah.
How does
It's not a game.
how does strained versus non-strained affect either the making process or the texture of the cocktail?
Yeah, so I think that, I mean, it's really just about the texture of the cocktail, right? So when you strain it, at least for me, when I'm enjoying a cocktail, I don't want to drink the pith. If I'm having a mimosa, I don't care. Like orange, grapefruit, bring it on. I really don't care about pith in the juice. But when it comes to cocktails, like one of the things that I enjoy most about drinking, especially a refreshing cocktail like this, is that like silky texture. So I always strain everything through a fine mesh strainer. But that's just me. You don't have to do it.
You don't have to do it.
You don't have to do it. But for me, like, you know, cocktails are, it's a visual experience, it's a textural experience, it's a flavor experience. You know, there's so many different, it's a social experience, right? So like, there's so many different aspects of making and enjoying a cocktail with you and your friends. And so, you know, like I tend to kind of think about everything involved, even to like the music on in the background and the lighting or whatever, right? So like, I'm just super OCD when it comes to that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, like I think straining the juice, it just gives it like a smoother, silkier texture for the finished product. So.
And you'll strain some of that. You'll strain some of that pulp out when you're straining it into the glass, but not so much. And you can do the double. You could also not pre-strain your juice, and you could double strain when you're pouring it into the glass, right?
You could do that, yeah.
Would it break up the bubbles more if you add the soda water?
No.
Okay.
No. You could do that. Like it's easier for me just to strain it as I'm juicing versus afterwards. But if you guys noticed, like this particular strainer, this is what I would call a double coil. So the coils are a lot less.
Those are a lot tighter
dense.
than like this one, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you're gonna allow more ice particulates because whenever you shake, right, the cubes are gonna break up, and you're gonna allow more particulates into your cocktail. Some people really like their martinis like shaken super hard, so they like that, like they like seeing the ice shards on top, and that's fine. But for me, I like the tighter coils on a double coil. So you can
I don't know
find
where
my
we put our strainer, but for those of you who may not know the reference to a double strain, where's our other strainer in here? Is it in the wash now?
Like the mesh?
The mesh. A double strain is when you take a strainer. Coffee stuff? It's by the coffee stuff.
Oh, the coffee stuff. Okay.
And you use the Hawthorne strainer or a julep strainer or something in your tin, and then you pour through a fine strainer like this. So you can do that if you didn't pre-strain your juice. You pour through it, and this will catch the pulp before it goes in.
Yep.
Tip of the day. I could actually demo that one. Rebecca says it's nice to talk about strains and it not be about COVID. But
good one. Good one.
Question for you.
Yes.
What happens when you're getting ready to make cocktails and you're like, oh crap, I'm out of simple syrup?
You make simple syrup.
What's the quickest, fastest way to make simple syrup?
I got it.
You got it?
Sean wants to do this one.
Okay. Sean's
The easiest way is shaker. Just throw it in a mason jar, add the water and the sugar, and shake it. It's so fast.
Shake your simple syrup.
Shake your simple syrup in a mason jar, and then it's made.
Just make sure that you're either measuring, weight or volume, or doesn't really matter. It's pretty close.
There are people on this live stream where that matters.
Okay, so I always do by weight because I'm a nerd. But I have a kitchen scale, so I'll always do by weight. Heat up the water in a kettle. Mix it up. You're good to go. Less than 5 minutes. It's super, super easy.
And that's the hard thing, is the heating it, because we usually make our simple syrup 1-to-1 by weight, and then you warm up that water so that it dissolves fully. You want to dissolve all those crystals fully. But then you have warm simple syrup, and sometimes you have to wait for that to chill. So Sean's method, as long as As long as you can fully dilute that sugar into that water and you have a little bit of time maybe for that to happen and settle in and shake it every once in a while, I think that could work too.
Yeah.
Or you could also quick chill it.
I was gonna say just throw it in the freezer for like 5 minutes. You know, it'd be a lot better than just using hot simple syrup.
Yeah. Or if
But
you
then
make
again,
a big batch.
If you only have hot simple syrup, shake it less.
That's true.
Right? So it's really like that heat is just going to add more dilution. So let's say you would typically shake like a gimlet that you would serve up in a coupe glass for like 8 seconds, drop it down to 6. Or if you're going to do something on the rocks, if it's normally 6 seconds, drop it down to 4. If you're doing a lengthened cocktail like this, do a whip. Just do like a quick little...
It's actually a little counterintuitive to think about it, because if you think about the fact that I'm adding a warm ingredient, in my mind, I would naturally go the way of I've got to shake it longer so it could chill faster, so it could make sure that I achieve the right amount of chill. But you're saying that the warmness will actually cause it to dilute faster.
More. Yep.
So you have to.
So I would say, yeah, if you're in a pinch and you have to work with a hot simple syrup, then add everything to the tin before you add the simple syrup, and add that last. And then shake it for less. So so the ice is gonna start chilling everything else beforehand. And then once you add the warm simple syrup, just shake it for like I would say on average like 2 seconds less than what you normally think you would.
We got some good discussion going in the chat about sugar. The other thing before I mention this is
never use powdered sugar. I don't know.
she did say she said powdered sugar, JK. And then John said yes, because most powdered sugar has cornstarch in it, and so that'll mess up your drink. Make it kind of funky. It'll still be sweet, but then the other suggestion, it's not worth the sacrifice, according to Brandon.
It's really not.
But if you have caster sugar or fine sugar, then that'll work. That'll dilute more quickly. Yeah. The other thing, and this is a sneaky trick that Sean and I sometimes use, is if you want to chill something quickly, say you make a big batch of simple syrup, just take a little bit of it and put it in the freezer, right? Or if you have a cold glass in the freezer, take some of your warm simple syrup, pour it in your cold glass. If you're pre-chilling your mixing glasses and your glassware, or you got one of those under-counter bar,
if you're fancy,
fridges, pull out something cold and use that to chill down your simple syrup.
Yeah.
Oh, thoughts on
you
using
can do that without adding more dilution. You're good to go. Yeah.
And that came from sort of back here a comment about the honey syrup. When Tom used the honey syrup, he said it kind of disappeared in his cocktail. But he used honey syrup. The flavor of
the honey disappeared?
Which is interesting, because I feel like honey sometimes can be a little overpowering.
It can be overpowering, which is why, there's only a couple cocktails that I really enjoy using honey with.
But it was because he forgot to make simple syrup before the stream, which is that was the origins of this conversation.
Honestly, grapefruit and honey go really well together, so I'm not really surprised that it would be minimized. Honey tends to kind of stand out on its own, but in my experience, like the combination of honey and grapefruit specifically tends to harmonize really, really well. So I don't think I made a mistake.
I think the cool thing about this is like it's about experimentation too, and so you improvised, used the honey syrup that you had around, great, and now you've like learned from that experience. You might figure out, you might try it again with more honey syrup, or you might just say, that was a good experiment. I'll learn how to make simple syrup very quickly next time.
Yeah.
Carl said he's tried monkey fruit. There's so we're talking about alternative sugars now. Monk fruit. I've seen that. At grocery outlet. They have like this monk fruit alternative sweetener, and I think alternative sweeteners like coconut sugar. Yeah. And a lot of these things are becoming very popular, especially in sort of the alternative food and health communities.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think sugar is sugar is sugar, but
I haven't really done a whole lot of experimentation with like stevia or monk fruit sugar, like coconut sugar, anything like that. Like, there's a cocktail that we always, actually it's a breakfast, like coffee drink we make down in Oaxaca called Café de Olla that's made with piloncillo, which is like a super hardened, like dark sugar that you get, and you have to kind of, for me, I make a syrup out of it and kind of go from there. But I mean, as far as the other stuff, I really don't have a ton of experience with working with like stevia or coconut sugar.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
monk fruit. Like that's.
I think I would agree with I don't remember who said this. You guys you have so many comments. I have to go back and read them. I think John said I kind of am personally aligned with John in terms of artificial sweeteners tend to have an aftertaste for me as well.
Yeah.
And so if that's something that you don't mind and you're just like you got that big box of Splendas from Costco and you're like, I don't have any simple syrup, so that's totally fine. What's that, Sean Michael? Oh, do we want to talk about mezcal? We did. We talked a little bit about the mezcal Paloma. Did anyone use mezcal in their Paloma? I would love to hear what you thought about it. And I know that...
I think there was someone that said that they used Casamigos mezcal with theirs.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
I know someone who may or may not be on the stream, he told me the other day, he's like, every time there's a tequila cocktail, I pretty much always use mezcal instead. Because he just prefers... He just prefers the smokiness of the mezcal.
And I think, for me, when I first started drinking mezcal, the first couple times I had it, all I could taste was the smoke. But the way that I would think about it, right, is like, so tequila's cooked in an autoclave, typically with steam, right? But mezcal's roasted underground for 4 to 6 days versus 8 hours cooked with steam. So once you get used to that like smoky flavor and that roasted note of what mezcal is, all those secondary flavors really start to open up. And so I would agree. I think like I love tequila cocktails, but to me, my heart and soul is always going to be with mezcal, just because it does have that additional layer of complexity to it. And like I said, I love tequila, but to me, like my heart's always going to be.
I think that there's a lot of what you and I share too, in terms of understanding the story of a thing and of a place or of a product. And mezcal is almost like it just has this really rich, beautiful history, and it's
indigenous to Mexico too. That's the thing, is like when tequila became an industrialized thing, that was from the Spanish. That wasn't like like mezcal was much more ancient than tequila. And so the fact that everything's done by hand, the fact that everything is still like passed on from generation to generation. And there's actually a phrase that we use down in Oaxaca where we're cheersing with someone who we love and respect a lot. We say dixpe, right? So dixpe means literally from the heart, but it's in Zapotec. It's not Spanish. So dixpe means from the heart of the earth, the agave plant is grown. From my heart to you, as we're cheersing, this is me respecting you. From the heart of the mezcalero comes the actual spirit, and then the heart of the earth. Like this is where everything comes from. So the agriculture, everything. There's like 250 types of heirloom corn in Oaxaca too. So it's not just agave. It's everything down in Oaxaca. So it's a respect for the heart of not only the people who are enjoying it, but the mezcalero, the tradition, the earth itself. So dixpe is like, you don't just say dixpe to anyone. It's like someone who you know and trust and respect a lot. So, but it's very common phrase to say down in Oaxaca. So.
Yes. So one of the things that we're excited about on the cocktail journey is that I think we're at week 5 or 6 in our 52-week series of doing 52 classic cocktails in a year, and it's really fun, and we're really enjoying it. For those of you who have been joining us week after week, I would love to continue to hear your feedback on what you love, on what you might want to hear more of, and what you think about sort of the structure. But the other things that we're working on are more like in-depth education around things like spirits categories. And Brandon will be joining us to do sort of an agave spirits 101 class. You know this, right?
Yep.
Okay.
You know that you're doing it.
Sure.
Make sure that he knew.
I'm kidding. Yeah. Well, I know now.
And so one of the things that we'll start doing is we'll start sort of doing these, and they might be once a month that we'll begin to release some of this content, but we'll do Gin 101 and talk about all the different styles and kinds of gin and how they're distilled and what makes them different and the history of gin and how it evolves. The history part is really interesting for me, and he's kind of a big history buff too in terms of the origin story of different spirits and styles. And has a lot of good deep knowledge about agave spirits, including both tequila and mezcal, and the storylines between those two. So that'll be coming up. We're also going to start releasing a Bartending 101 series this month. So if you're not already a member of the Cocktail Journey, or you're interested in learning more, you can go to thecocktailjourney.com and check it out. We are technically in sort of our beta phase right now, where we're doing a lot of education design and a lot of community engagement and listening to you and wanting your feedback about the things that you're most interested in learning and engaging on. And we've already gotten a lot of that. We're going to do a deep dive into bitters. We're going to do a whole series on sort of syrups and the different kinds of syrups that you can use in a cocktail and the basic building blocks of a cocktail, and then where to go from there as well. Next week on the Cocktail Journey, I'm going to butcher this.
Next week is what?
Next week on the Cocktail Journey is the Vauqueré. Did I say that correctly? Vauqueré.
Oh, I love that cocktail. I might just come and hang out.
That's what John said. And so John wanted to know what's next. Vauqueré. Sean took French. I took Italian. So I'm just always kind of like... I butcher my French words.
Vauqueré in French, I believe, is Old Carriage. And it was a cocktail that was invented down in New Orleans. Mm-hmm. It's one of my favorite Manhattan variations of all time.
Yes.
And it's amazing.
It's delicious.
Yeah.
We will have the basic recipe up on the site soon. And if you're interested in getting the recipes in advance and you could just sign up on our email list. We send a weekly email on Saturday that says, this is the cocktail we're doing this week. And it includes the ingredients and all the things that you need so you can go out that weekend and prep if you've got a busy week like us. So Vauqueré next week. We are going to have Megan Balzer on as our guest. She is going to be, she's fantastic. I'm so excited to have her on because she actually introduced us to this cocktail at Lion's Share. At 7 Grand, which is our, the whiskey bar in San Diego. Many, many, many years ago. And so we've learned a lot about whiskey from her. So you can come hang out if you want.
I probably will, to be honest.
We're going to have to start limiting the peanut gallery, but...
My lips will be sealed.
He's fine.
He's talking about me.
Oh, my bad.
No. We like it. We like them behind the camera. Okay. James, you love the one-page recipe PDFs. So if you have been with us since the very beginning, when we started sort of testing out this content and how we're going to be delivering it, and if you're a member of the Cocktail Journey, one of the things we started doing was we started releasing these really in-depth cocktail recipe pages that were PDFs, which we still have plans on doing a version of that going forward. But the main thing we're working on right now is building out the full sort of member experience in the platform. So some of that, like full recipe cards, are a little bit on hold until we launch that whole online experience. So thank you for your patience. We're going to continue to do that kind of in-depth content. We got to get the bones of this operation established. And I know, I'm just such a nerd about it. And so we thank you for you participating with us in this whole process. If you're not familiar with Sean and I and how we do and start things, we started a barware company 7 years ago called Standard Spoon. And it's been mostly crowdfunded, designed in collaboration with our community, with our major stakeholders. And I use that word. I use the word stakeholders. All of you who are in the corporate world, you're like, give me a pass. With our bartending community. And so we're very much about building and creating things in community and having you all help participate with us in designing the things that we're really interested in creating and producing for you and for all of us. So that's a little bit of our story. And so if you're with us on this cocktail journey, we're very much in that sort of initial stage of launching something new. And we love and appreciate that you're here supporting and encouraging us along our journey.
And I will say one thing too. I mean, I've known Sean and Rachel for a very long time, and one thing that I always appreciate is their attention to detail. So I remember the first time that they came into the bar that I was running at the time, and they had this brand new mixing glass that they wanted to show off. And we made like Manhattans, Negronis, like, you know, like all these different cocktails in it. And everything was like, well, how does it sound when you're actually like stirring the cocktail? It was everything like so much minute attention to detail, and that's what I've loved about every single product that Standard Spoon has done. That's why I brought it into my bar when I was bar managing at the time, and that's why I still love working with them now, and that's why I'm very happy to be here. So, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Brandon.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Yes, vegetarians can be stakeholders as well.
Whoa! Tom's got jokes.
And the last thing is that the Vauqueré does, many recipes for the Vauqueré do call for Benedictine. So every cocktail that we're featuring for these 52 weeks is something that you can make with the 15 bottles that we recommend for your bar. Benedictine is not one of those bottles. And so it's something that we'll chat about next week in terms of Benedictine in this recipe and the sort of original and origins of the recipe and whether it had Benedictine in it or not.
Cool. I'm excited to
But
hang
if you
out
have
with that.
Benedictine, you can make a good Vauqueré without Benedictine. But if you've got it, like we do, that has just been in your bar and hasn't been used for a long time, perfect opportunity to crack that bottle open.
The cool thing about Benedictine is you can get it in 375s as well, so you really don't need to like, buy a full
The
bottle.
half-size bottle.
Yeah.
Okay. You all have a wonderful week. Thank you for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed your little bit of pink sunshine with the Paloma, and we will see you all next week.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.